Yes, love's a secret weapon. Yeah!
Hi, I'm Donna Lauren.
And I'm Dr. Adam Geraci.
And you are listening to Love's a Secret Weapon podcast.
Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Everything that's wonderful is what I feel when we're together. Brighter than a lucky penny. When you're near, the rain clouds disappears, dear, and I feel so fine. Just to know that you're mine. My life is sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. That's how the sweet rain goes. So come on and join in. Everybody's sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Everything that's wonderful is sure to come your way when you're in love today. Sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Everything that's wonderful is what I feel when we're together. Brighter than a lucky penny. When you're here, the gray clouds disappear, dear, and I feel so fine. Just to know that you are mine. My life is sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. That's how the sweet rain goes. So come on and join in. Everybody's sunshine, lollipops, and rainbows. Everything that's wonderful is sure to come your way. 'Cause you're in love, and love is here to
Welcome to Love's a Secret Weapon podcast. And hey, Scott Morrow, thank you so much for giving us your time away from the photo shoot that you're doing. Tell us, well, actually, thanks to you, I believe, hooking us up with Shannon Allen.
Yes.
And Shannon, I've adopted you. You know, it's not legal, but it's heavenly official. That's all I can
Oh.
say.
I am honored.
But Dr. Adam, I just wanted to ask Scott what you're doing today, and how did you manage to depart from that for a minute so you could be with us?
Well, it's more of a product type a shoot, and it's for a whiskey company of all things.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there are some benefits to it. They always give you a case of whiskey when you're done.
Nice.
I hope payment as well, Scott, but if not, the whiskey is fine.
I don't really drink, but I can sell it on the street. You know,
Right.
do something with it. But there is a break anyway between 1 and 3:30, so I'm okay now. And I'll be okay until about 4:30. I assume we'll be done by then.
Well, if they have a little shot, you know, you may go longer.
Oh yeah, these things hang on. They continue on till 7, 8 o'clock. It's just that the shoot ends at 4:30.
Okay. Well, it's so wonderful. First of all, I have to say that Dr. Adam was on vacation, traveling through Europe for about 5 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
I welcome you back to your home in Australia. And so good to reconnect, honey.
Absolutely. I was just saying to Scott before we came on air that you realize how far away Australia is from absolutely everything when you're doing 7-8 hours to Singapore, about a 12-hour layoff in the airport, and then another 12 hours in the air. So I absolutely loved it. It was mostly Italy and Greece, but I am not going to get on a plane for a while now.
Well, next time I want to see you right here in Arizona.
That would be quite spectacular, and we probably should start. Of course, as you said, Donna, we've got Shannon and Scott on the line. Really, we're all connected, I think, by a love of classic Hollywood, with two of you having created some of our favorite television and movie moments. But we're speaking with Shannon Allen, podcast host, culinary extraordinaire, which we'll get to, and a keeper of the flame of all things old and classic Hollywood, and someone who was there in the innovative 50s and 60s of Hollywood as a young performer, Scott Morrow. And of course, bringing us all together is my co-host, Donna. But, we're going to discuss all sorts of things today. But one thing I thought I might bring up just to start, Scott and Donna, is that you sort of have a mutual connection in Paul Peterson. Donna, of course, Paul's been a lifelong friend of you, and Scott, you had a role on the Donna Reed Show.
I did. I had a recurring role. The character's name was Pee-wee, of all people. And I was pretty short then. I'm not that much bigger now, but I think I can I can probably look Donna in the eye now. But I had a recurring role. I did about 6 or 7 episodes, season 2 and part of season 3. And Donna, you may remember, I think you and I did a Dr. Kildare possibly together.
Really?
I was looking at the other day, and I looked in the cast. It looked like we were both in it.
Really?
I don't remember you exactly. I don't know remember the role or what part you played versus me, but we did one together.
Wait a minute. Let's dig in. Okay, so I know that I did a 7-part, and it was based on the dialysis machine being distributed very, very selectively in this country, in the United States. There were very, very few, and so you had to be put on a waiting list. And so my character was a young mother who, needed a dialysis machine. And because I was a young mother and I would have been, sorely missed by a young child, I think there were 5 machines available. One of them was dedicated to the character played by Leslie Nielsen. One was to Floris Leachman. One was to me. And, were you a candidate?
What year that may have been? Which one, that episode?
I think it was 1965.
Okay, now see, there's something wrong there, because in 65, I was already knee-deep in rice paddies in the military.
Of course. Of course. So you may have, I think you probably did an earlier one.
Might have been an earlier one. I'm trying to think. I did 2 or 3 Dr. Kildares, but you weren't part of those, Donna. They were like a little earlier, 61, 62.
Oh,
and
no.
I had some direct scenes with the main cast members. It could be a mistake on IMDb, too. They've made a few.
Well, you did. I mean, and you did so many, Scott, as well, of live TV and drama series and comedy. So getting them all together. But Donna.
But the thing that we have in common, Scott, is being on the MGM lot when it was still, just filled with history. I mean, you could just feel, the likes of, Katharine Hepburn or.
Oh, sure.
Spencer Tracy or anyone that had worked on that lot that, you could feel them in the walls of each stage. And then, of course, you have Richard Chamberlain and Raymond Massey,
Shannon and I have talked about it many times. People like yourself and myself, Paul Peterson, we came out of the era when there was some really the real Hollywood stars.
Oh, yeah.
You don't find those people anymore. The Jimmy Stewarts, the Clark Gables, the Cary Grants. I worked with all of them one time or another.
Really, tell us, break it down, Scott, because this is an opportunity for not just us, to be in conversation, but for our listeners to really dig into your treasure chest. If you would give us the honor.
Well, the best one, just starting out here, I was about 3.5 years old, and my older brother Brad, who actually was in the business too before me, we got a cattle call from our agent. I hadn't done much of anything yet, and it was for a Lux soap print ad, and they were looking for a pair of brothers or a pair of sisters or a pair of twins at either sex. So we show up there. There's at least 75 kids there, and all between the ages of 4 and maybe 10. And someone comes up to us and introduces herself. She wasn't really well known herself. This is like late 1949, remind you.
Wow.
And she comes up to Brad and I and says, "Hi, I'm Marilyn Monroe." And Brad and I look at each other like, "So, who are you?" She was nobody then, just like us. So that's the first time I met her, and it gets better after that. I met her a couple of times after that, and then we get into the 20th Century Fox lot, where I had a contract there for 3 years. between the ages of 10 and 13, and she was right next door to me for no
Really?
better reason than the spelling of my last name,
Oh,
Morrow
yes, of
Monroe.
course.
And I got to tell you,
Wow.
I
So how
don't
was
know.
she, honey? How was she to you?
Well, my mother got to know her quite well because my mother kept a daily journal of everything that took place on the Fox lot
Fantastic.
with me involved, and she had many conversations with Marilyn because she was in her trailer when she was off camera. And when she was off camera, she was a different person. She was easy to talk to. She was relaxed, funny, intelligent. And she used to buy us ice cream cones all the time when the humor truck would come by every day.
Oh, that's
And
so
Well,
a lot of that
did
is
any one of
interesting.
you, has any one of you seen, a documentary on her biography?
many of them.
Oh, I mean, just the idea of being, I've had a lot of abandonment issues of my own, but, she lived in about 12 foster homes
Yes, she
and,
did.
and then married super young and, kind of like to get her out of the last one's hair.
Right.
And with all that abandonment and rejection in life, and this is something I can relate to as well, and I hope you do too, is that in your heart of hearts, no matter what life brings to you, that something tells you that there's a brighter light out there. And she was so brilliant, not just, intellectually, but obviously her light still shines so brightly that she's inspiring, us. And to this moment, I'm going to put it in a very, very kind of etheric way. A lot of us are talking about the Christ coming of the second Christ, and that energy is so Marilyn Monroe, so loving, so accepting. And I never was fortunate enough to meet her, but I just relate and feel her energy so strongly, and it's so good to know that people like that are brought into the world, and they're angels. They're very angelic.
Well, I believe in a lot of what you do, Donna. And each year, the Marilyn Remembered Club, which got started 25, 30 years ago, they hold a memorial for her, a tribute, each year at the Westward Memorial Park, where she's in tears.
Oh, right.
And they invite me every other year that I can make it to speak, because I'm one of the few living souls that can still talk about her. And they always have 100 people or so in the chapel, the same chapel that I was in. My mother and I got to go to her funeral. I was 16 at the time, by that time. And
can you tell what time of year is that?
That was August. It was 2 weeks after she died. It was August, I think, 13th.
Oh my gosh! So it's almost identical to where we're at right now. Oh my gosh!
Yeah. They hold it they do it every August 5th.
I see, August 5th. Okay, that's
August
good to
5th every
remember,
year.
just in case we can be in West Los Angeles at that time.
Yes, yes, indeed.
I remember standing next to her. I don't know what to call it, but right,
and it's in the wall.
Isn't it Joe DiMaggio leaving roses there all the time? I know, fresh red roses.
Yeah, when she died, I should say, for at least 5 years, a set of fresh roses were put on her in the urn next to her grip every day, 7 days a week, at 10 in the morning. And even when he died, the tradition was maintained by the mortuary itself, the cemetery.
Wow.
So it's still being done today. It's every single day, all these years later.
I do. I mean, that's a distinct memory of mine. I actually went there with Paul.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Wow.
I know.
Well, it's funny. I've been there many times, and I've taken people with me, and I had a young lady with me one time, and she was trying to make a phone call as I was there saying a few words to Marilyn, and her phone went off. It wouldn't work.
Oh.
And she said,
wow.
She was holding audience.
Is it possible? She said that my phone doesn't work because I'm right here now interrupting you. I said, well, see if it works when you go out the gate. So she goes out the gate and it starts to work again. And I said, well, there you go. Marilyn's energy is everywhere.
She's still, And that's something, and I do want to ask you, Scott, in a minute about a story you had about Marilyn and Ethel Waters, but I'll just bring Shannon in because, Shannon, you did a wonderful interview with Scott and many other people on your podcast, Vanguard of Hollywood. Let's talk about what drew you to classic Hollywood.
Well, it was actually Marilyn. So I remember when I was 9 years old, there was a Marilyn Monroe Barbie in a Toys R Us magazine. And that ad was just so beautiful that it sparked my interest in old Hollywood. So Marilyn was really the catalyst for me. And so you can imagine what a dream it is now to actually be able to know Scott. And as he mentioned, he's one of the very last people on the planet who actually knew her and knew her intimately. So very, very special to go from 9-year-old me and now to actually be friends with someone who knew Marilyn.
So may I just insert for a moment, the day that we spent together, Shannon,
Yes.
I could feel your sense of synchronicity, and I mean, that's timeless. So for you to find each other, find you and Scott to find each other, and then for the four of us to come together in these crazy times, and it's a full moon energy on August the 19th whenever this comes out. I just want to let everybody know this is an extraordinary time for the four of us to unite.
Yeah,
so
perfect.
Now I won't interrupt anymore, Adam.
No, that's fine.
No, this is a conversation.
I'd like to interject one other thing, though. When Marilyn finally passed away and I was 16, I knew her best between the ages of 9 and 12. And I always said to my mother many times, and Shannon, you remember this too, I wish I was older when I knew her. Why couldn't I have been older?
Right.
Well, guys, can I say one more thing? I used to know someone who went to high school with her in Van Nuys.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Yeah, she did go to Van Nuys High School for, I think, one semester.
That's right. I think she was 15 years old.
Yeah, something like that.
Wow. Where did you go to school, Scott? It wasn't Hollywood High or Venice High, was it?
No, I didn't go to the traditional the Hollywood Professional School or Hollywood High like Lana Turner did. We'll get into her later. But anyway, I went to, my folks lived in Granada Hills at the time, which was north of Los Angeles. It's in the San Fernando Valley. And I went to Granada Hills High School. When I could be in school, I was in and out of school a lot because of the studio stuff. I had a private tutor. And I should get back to my trailer on the 20th Century Fox lot. It wasn't that I was a star or anything. It's that my trailer was there specifically for classroom study. It just happened to be directly next door to hers, and it did tick off a lot of people who were Robert Wagner, for instance. He was a young contract player, a young guy like 23 or 4 at the time. He was actually jealous and mad at me and my mother for having my trailer. He said, there's a trailer wasted on a kid.
Right.
And he
you know what you should have said to him? Did you graduate? Because you're welcome to join my class.
There you go.
He could have been the 23-year-old in the 3rd grade, right?
The closest he got to her, they did a screen test together. She didn't like him anyway because he was she didn't like people who were pushy and threw themselves at her,
Right.
And she was, by the time we got to 1956, when I was there, she was already a big megastar, iconic. There was some jealousy there. Why am I next door to her?
And was this, Scott, when you were filming Peyton Place, the wonderful, wonderful movie Peyton Place with Lana Turner and Hope Lange and Diane Varsi, and that was at the time.
That was at that time, and she was Marilyn was around. It was 19. We started filming in 1956. I had a 3-picture deal with 20th Century Fox, and it entailed a contract for 3 years. And Marilyn was, of course, there. In 57, it finished. It took 87 weeks to make that movie back in those days. 87 weeks. Can you imagine? That's like a year and a half.
Not today.
And it was filmed between Maine and places on the East Coast and New England, and of course on the Fox lot. And Marilyn was very aware of that movie. In fact, Jerry Wall, the producer of the film, he was trying to find a part for her in there, but how could he find a part for her in there when you had Lana Turner as the star?
Yes.
Could you imagine?
It just didn't work. Well, by that time, Marilyn would have had to have the significant role. And, in 1957, she was already about 29 or 30 herself. So it just wouldn't have worked out. I said, why couldn't she have played my sister instead of Hope Lange?
Now, nothing against Hope Lange. Hope Lange.
No, nothing at all. She was, in fact, it was because of Hope Lange that I probably got the part. They interviewed, even though I was under contract there, they still went through the process and the protocol of interviewing several kids to see who would play off Hope Lange the best. And of course, Hope Lange had to do a screen test with several kids, including me, but she already knew me. And it worked out. We were already familiar with each other. We were relaxed with each other. We could communicate with each other. I really did feel she was my the older sister I never had, because I only had a brother. Never had grew up with a sister.
Oh, that is such an experience.
It went that way, and she convinced the producers and director, hey, he's the one. Use him. He's already under contract. You'll save money.
And she felt the chemistry.
The chemistry was really good. Yeah, Hope Lange was great anyway. I really loved her. Yeah, no doubt.
And Scott, I please elaborate, because I know you did so much work as a child.
Yeah, I did. In fact, I don't know. I used to tell people in interviews. I've done other interviews, magazines, and things, and I would tell people by the time I was 14 or 15, my life had endured more subplots than a Shakespearean farce. It was true. It was true. I never knew who my real parents were. I had so many mothers and different sisters and brothers, and they're all actors, But I finally figured it out.
One big happy family, honey.
Yeah. Who was your mother this week, Scott? Well, Lana Turner. Just Lana Turner. And she wasn't that well liked on the 20th Century Fox lot. She was under contract there too.
Right.
Because she was stubborn and she had a personality, but she liked my mother and me. She liked kids. Most people did. And it was the adult world, like Marilyn, who had a little problem with. Right. So I was there at a good time, I guess.
Well, you were non-threatening. That's the whole position of Hollywood. At least that era, where there was such a terrible gender discrimination, I think that Shannon and I could probably dig super deep into, the people that came to Hollywood and started the motion picture business. That was a time in America when it was truly the land of opportunity, and people leaving Europe, Eastern Europe, wartime, would come to the United States for liberty. But then, coming from the tradition, of the older European tradition, where the woman and still is Shannon, we're still fighting for equality. That it was really a wide gap, between the men that ran the studios and the women that were their stars. But, basically they were.
Well, and what's so fascinating to me with that is despite some of these elements that were going on, you had people like Lana Turner. Esther Williams is another great example. These huge stars that ended up carrying the pictures. So here are these women stars. They're actually given weaker leading men because the studios knew, okay, Esther's got this one. Esther's got it. So we'll put her with someone, anyone, and it doesn't matter because this film she's going to make great. So it was a really a neat opportunity for these women who really proved themselves. They really did carry these films.
Yeah.
And why do you think that changed, Shannon? Skipping ahead a little bit, because of course that was, the 50s and before that, the 40s and the 30s. And then, the last time I kind of remember that really happening is the 80s or 90s. Why don't we have that anymore? That's a big question, but what do you think it is?
Oh, I think, Now, this is coming from someone, I don't watch a lot of films made within the last 20 years. I do sometimes, but for the most part, I do really stick to the classic golden age of Hollywood. But I do feel like there's a lot of female empowerment these days, from what I've seen. But for me, there is just something really special about classic films. And I just, I really, really don't participate in too much that's being made now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And well, when you think about Meryl Streep or Nicole
Mhm.
Kidman,
Mhm.
you know, I don't want to rattle off a bunch of names, but they are dynamos, and
Yeah.
they have retained a sense of empowerment, which
Mhm.
has given them a sense of equality. They know who they are, and they've commanded a certain respect in the
Mhm.
industry. And that's real. That's, you know, that's wonderful, and that's where it needs to go, where it needs to be. And then there's
Yeah.
more female directors, and there's just more female involvement,
Right.
unlike the gender gap in old Hollywood.
Yeah.
Well, and kind of as Adam asked, what kind of changed that, perhaps, and I can think of one person who in particular had a huge impact, and that would have been Katharine Hepburn. She was one of the first female stars who had a career after the age of 40. And it's really interesting with her. You look back at her career, she's still the most decorated actress as far as the Academy Awards go. She's won 4. But 3 of those came after the age of 50 for her. And again, this is an earlier time in Hollywood. She really pushed the boundaries and really paved the way for people like, as Donna mentioned, Nicole Kidman, Meryl Streep, these actresses who have just continued to have these prolific careers. And age hasn't been as much of an issue. And really, Kate, I think Barbara Stanwyck is another great example of an old actress who really, really just showed, hey, we're still here and our best years are ahead.
Yeah.
Well,
Absolutely.
I think the image of the blonde bombshell, was a disadvantage in the film noir and in the 50s and for the 60s, though. I don't know. I mean, were you still involved in, I'm speaking with Scott, referring to the 60s. Did you graduate into?
Yeah, what happened with me is I was active between, let's say, 1950 and 1965, a 15-year gap. And I probably could have continued, but Uncle Sam came calling. The military draft was still on. So I didn't want to get involved in that. Spent a couple of years in the Army. The Vietnam War was going on at the time. But so I volunteered to spend 4 years instead of 2 years in the Air Force, where you can pick and choose what you want to do. And I got to be involved in photography because I had been a young guy coming. I actually got what I wanted to do. Problem was I still wound up in the bad places anyway, but at least it was under my terms.
Actually in Vietnam?
I really was there for about 6 months. I was stationed mostly on the island of Okinawa, which was like being in Tahiti. Loved that place. But that was part of Japan at the time. Still is. But when I got out in 1969, I came home in 69. I don't know. I probably could have continued on. My agent had already retired. Brad was no longer in the business.
Where does one see your photo journal of those years?
Oh, you mean the military years?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a lot of that is, it's government property. I did keep a lot of my own stuff anyway because you had to develop your own work. And some of the work is in the museum in Washington, the historic museum there. And I get credit for it. I did take a lot of war pictures, mostly from helicopters from above because I was in the Air Force. And which was just as dangerous. You got people below shooting at you while you're taking pictures.
Of course.
So we were all trained the same way. I've got a camera, which were huge heavy cameras back then. They were the same type that the United Press used in the API. Big graphic reflex cameras. They were heavy. You had to put magazines in them for the film. But they blew up beautifully because they were like 5x7 or 8x7 slides you could blow up.
Oh, wow.
And you learn the hard way that way. And by the time I came out, I was really knowledgeable about photography.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it was interesting. I mean, I saw some bad things. I saw some good things. I made a lot of friends. Some of them are no longer here. So I have a lot of memories between Hollywood and the military and what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
Interestingly, this is interesting. Marilyn actually told my mother, because she asked me one day, Marilyn did, what do you want to do when you grow up? I was like 9, 10. And I had seen all these publicity. I had witnessed all these publicity photographers walking around the sets in the studio taking pictures. I figured, well, hey, what kind of job would that be? That's not a job. That's fun. It's like a hobby. So I told her that. I did relay that to Marilyn. She asked me. I told her that. And she said, Toby, my mother's name was Toby. She said, I think your son wants to be a photographer when he grows up.
Tremendous.
And here I am all these years later. That's what I'm doing.
That is tremendous.
Tell us, what is your focus on the photography? Is it more or less celebrity or magazine covers or articles?
When I first got started, it was the standard doing wannabe actors, headshots, people who hadn't gotten there yet. I did some well-known people back then, and even more recently, I've shot Jennifer Aniston. I've done Reese Witherspoon, people like that.
How did you and Shannon meet?
Well, that's really interesting. I think I'll let Shannon take it from there. I had no intentions of actually knowing Shannon, but you tell the story, Shannon.
All right. Well, we met through our mutual friend, Mimi Gibson, who you probably know best as the voice of Lucky in 101 Dalmatians. And yes, she's also the daughter of Cary Grant in Houseboat.
With Paul again. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
There's Paul. He's always there. But
Okay.
anyway, so I got to know Mimi, and she introduced me to Scott at a showing of Houseboat. And one thing led to another. And of course, Scott has all these amazing stories, and I love hearing them, and I wanted to share them. And he agreed to an interview, and it's just been friends from that point on.
Oh, that's so marvelous.
But Shannon, I think the deal breaker is when you heard about my relationship with your favorite icon, Marilyn.
Oh, well, I gotta say, when you meet someone and he's introduced to you as someone who knew Marilyn Monroe, Lana Turner, Cary Grant, how can you help but just want to hang on their every word?
Mimi Gibson is a good friend of mine, and we go way back. We went to elementary school together, a couple of years younger than I am, but I think I was in the sixth grade when she was in the 4th, whatever. But we knew each other for many, many years, and we always used to brag. She says, "Well, I slept with Cary Grant." And in one of my Donna Reed episodes, it shows me sleeping with Donna Reed in a tent during a camping outing. So I brag, "Yeah, well, I slept with Donna Reed." And she was America's favorite housewife at the time. So we had little stories like that going on. I did have a book come out in 2022 about my life. I didn't even want to have anything to do with the book, but Shannon's read it. A lot of people have read it. All these stories we're talking about now do come out in the book with pictures.
Is it still available on Amazon?
Yeah,
it is. Well, the book was called simply Made in Hollywood, and we had different titles we were going to use. But the fact is, my mother was pregnant with me when they left Chicago, Illinois on a train in 1946. And because Brad was already developing an agent, he was 4 or 5 years old at the time. So they arrived in, I could have been born in New Mexico. She was starting to have problems when the train was passing through New Mexico.
The title could be made in New Mexico.
Yeah, she held on. And as soon as the train arrived at Union Station in L.A., they rushed her to, I think it was called, it's now called, it's the hospital today.
Cedars
well, back
11?
then, well, Cedars 11 and now I think it's called had changed. They moved the address to somewhere else. The old address where I was born is now, I think, a religious place. But anyway, they rushed me over there, Cedars of Lebanon. And as soon as she got there, within 2 minutes, I was born. So technically, I was born in Los Angeles. My parents' first house was a rental in the Hollywood Hills. So here we are again in L.A. And my first professional job at the age of 3 was a commercial in Hollywood. So I was made in Hollywood.
Made in Hollywood.
Yeah, it said Made in Hollywood, the Scott Morrow story. And most people said, well, who was he? But as soon as they turned the book over and read the back cover, they saw the word Marilyn in there and 20th Century Fox and slept with America's favorite spouse wife.
Something just came up in my mind. I think that there's some link because my husband Jared's brother Stan was a child in An Affair to Remember.
No way.
Oh, wait a sec.
He was a member of a children's chorus, I believe.
Oh my gosh.
That's so bizarre.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Shannon knows the story there. I didn't want to have anything to do with An Affair to Remember because I had just come off making Peyton Place, a big epic movie.
Yes.
And because I was under contract, the producer said, we want to add you to the orphan scene where you're singing in a chorus. And my mother and my agent said, why would he want to do that? That's going to be downgrading him. But contracts are contracts. You do what they say. So I was thrown in there. And I actually got to sing a couple of small verses myself.
Did you meet another little boy? Yes. Well, I was going to say, did you meet a little boy named Stanley?
Yeah, if I can remember that, Donna, I don't know. I tell you, I don't think I'll ever have to worry about dementia. If I can remember that, I'll never get dementia.
Well, let's guarantee that. Okay, so I have an assignment for the 4 of us. We have to rewatch Affair to Remember and look for the kids in the chorus.
Spot.
Okay.
Yeah. Spot. We can do.
Hey, I can send you the clip. I have the clip of that.
And I have to brag about Scott for a second there because not only did he get a solo part, which he's so adorable in, but Deborah Carr was so impressed that she actually told his mom afterwards just how well he did. So Deborah Carr is one of the 2 stars in the picture. And to have her specifically single Scott out and give him a compliment, that's saying something.
Well, I had a little advantage. I had more experience than the other kids being under contract there. And I had done about 40 commercials before I did anything on television or film. So and those are never reported on any of the movie sites. They don't talk about somebody's commercials.
Well, listen, guys, my husband was just saying that Jared was just saying that there was a lady named May Nightingale that was in charge of the children's chorus. Does that name ring a bell?
That name does. She actually was she was a singing instructor, and she had a lot to do with that.
Wow.
A lot to do with the singing. She was. That name I do remember.
What a strange connection. Did Scott, did you have many connections with other child actors of the time? Did you?
Well, I did. Besides Paul Peterson, there was Stanley Livingston from My 3 Sons. We had girls too, of course, Mimi Gibson and Eleanor Donahue, Father Knows Best. Never worked with Marta Kristen, but I've known her for a while too. You people might remember her from Lost in Space, 1965.
Yeah.
She came along later, a little later. She's still doing some cameo roles today.
Well, Marta was in Beach Blanket Bingo with Donna, of course.
Oh, yeah.
She was a bikini girl.
Yeah.
Yes, she was. And she was she was the mermaid, right?
She was the mermaid. Turns out to be the mermaid.
Yeah. Yeah, she didn't have a huge role, but she stood out. Of course, Donna,
Wait a minute, mermaids can't stand. Wait a minute.
Well, when she was out of water, she turned into a regular 2-legged woman. But I talked to her we were talking the other day about you. I remember the songs that Donna sang in that. So I said, cool. Donna was you stand out in that regard. Your songs, man, a lot of your songs. I have a lot of those.
Oh,
Oh,
on old albums that still play.
oh my
Well-
gosh, they don't skip. You took such good care of them.
They don't skip. Well, a couple do. You know, when I was in the service, somebody didn't
I
take care of them
thinking.
like I did. But
I mean, some of my albums are like melted into ashtrays. You know.
Oh no.
What happened?
well, thankfully you got little digital stuff now, and all your stuff exists, and it
Oh,
sounds
and
better
vinyl.
too.
Yeah, vinyl is still alive and they're
Oh,
doing very.
yeah. Look how turntables have come back. You know, they're selling like
gosh.
crazy.
Yeah, they're more
Oh,
popular
yeah.
than ever. Mhm.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think that's our common denominator, commonality that we all have is that the kind of craftsmanship that came from an era that you had such a feeling of hands-on that I think a lot of young musicians and actors and even photographers are looking for the old techniques and the feeling of developing and older cameras. I know my son made an investment. He's a 50-year-old musician, but he instead of getting a digital camera, he invested, I forgot what kind, but like a Nikon or something like that, but a vintage cameras because it's just that tactile quality and there's a feeling attached to it, just like the way the old movies were made and the old TV shows were made. And there was just a lot more impersonal contact, and whether it was positive or negative, it made an impression, and you weren't just a number.
No, I've kept a lot of my old cameras from the old days, and they still work. Film cameras to a young person stuff. Film? Where do you get the film?
Yeah, exactly. But it is coming back.
They're still. I mean, Kodak doesn't exist anymore as far as the company, but a lot of their films were taken over by other companies, and they do. And
the weirdest thing, you say Kodak. When I lived in Honolulu, I had an apartment in the original Holiday Inn by Diamond Head in Honolulu, and my neighbor was from the Kodak. He was an Eastman from the Eastman Kodak Company.
Yeah, Eastman was that was a primary owner. It was Eastman Kodak, right?
Yeah, yeah. He was an elderly gentleman, and my other neighbor was gosh, I can't think of her first name. Braggs. Patricia Braggs, from your favorite Braggs sauce and apple cider vinegar. Those are my two neighbors.
Isn't that interesting?
So does that mean?
Oh my goodness! I also in Honolulu one day. I think I shared this with Dr. Adam that I bumped into Richard Chamberlain.
Oh no!
Wow.
And he was probably maybe around 70 at the time. But, I know that from working with him and seeing him in his dressing room, and remember all the photographs he had posted in his dressing room? Did you ever see that, Scott? Did you ever see his side of his dressing room?
I don't recall that. I had some direct scenes with him. He was repairing a stitch on my face, something that my father had done to me in the episode. That's mentioned in the book. There's some pictures of it. Jump off the table. Yeah, he was really a great guy to work with, though, because he was pretty much the same off camera as he was on. Nice guy.
Totally. Very. But he was a dancer, and he had a lot of photographs of himself, doing ballet, and and so when I saw him, and we made contact, it's almost like he did like a little what do you call that, for gosh sake, the like a little plie and then a jump. Well, Shannon, you're a dancer.
Yeah. So a jeté would be a small jump.
Jeté. Yeah, that's right, honey. Oh my God, he had that in him, and to kind of like remember something. It's like you look at somebody you haven't seen for 50 years, and all of a sudden you have some sort of body language.
That's neat.
He's
another
Yeah.
Another actor I worked with in Peyton Place, Russ Tamblyn, was quite a dancer.
Oh, Russ
Oh,
Tamblyn.
And
yeah.
he
Amazing.
knew Richard Chamberlain. He said to people, he outwardly said, Richard Chamberlain can hold his own on the dance floor.
Wow.
Wow.
And coming from Russ Tamblyn, who, you know,
Yeah,
is
that
a good
means
actor, but
something.
West Side Story, and
Seven
he's a great
brides for
dancer.
seven
Seven
brothers.
Brides.
You know, I got to say right now, Donna, have you known any older soul at the young age that Shannon is?
Well,
I mean, she knows
I've
everything there
had
is
the
to know. But
I've had the privilege of, to me, it's like knowledge is knowledge, and whatever we acquire in our life is
yeah,
wonderful. But
yeah,
what I experienced the day that Shannon and her husband and my husband, had an opportunity to spend together,
yeah,
was a wisdom that comes from the heart and the soul, and just that instant connection where you feel like you're with
yeah,
someone that you can totally trust, and
Oh,
it's
absolutely. Yeah,
so there's
oh,
no age, it's ageless, it's just
oh,
yeah,
souls coming together.
well,
yep,
thank you.
yeah,
Andrew and I felt the same way about you and Jared. So
yeah,
huge compliment. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, it's easy and effortless,
Oh,
when souls come together, and
yeah,
we can share, share our hearts. And
yeah.
that's what Dr. Adam and I have been doing for well over 20 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
wow,
Yeah, and it's one of those miracles of life that, when you connect like that, and it
True.
just, who knows where it started. I mean, I theorize that, we could have started many, many millions of years ago, and now here we are again.
Yeah.
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 Well, you guys do a great job between Australia and the U.S. Wow, that's complicated,
Right.
but you get it done.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tech is tremendous to allow us to do
Yeah,
this, and it's just in the last few years it's just come up. And I was
oh
going to ask
sure.
Shannon, are you does that mean you're a collector of vintage or whether records
Oh,
or furniture or
oh yeah. Yeah. When I can afford it, I should say.
it's big business
Um,
now, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, I have a few pieces of Lana Turner's jewelry. So Scott, yet another star that I'm just, oh my gosh, he knew Lana
I
Turner.
know. Yeah.
And I think,
Yeah.
Scott, you honed in on something that you were saying that, you're talking about Richard Chamberlain and getting stitched up by him. And you
Right.
did play a few characters that were kind of in peril sometimes. Tell us about The Heart is a Rebel with the wonderful Ethel Waters.
Ethel Waters was really unique. I had never worked with somebody like that. I felt like she was my real nanny. You know,
Yeah.
she was terrific to work with, so easy and kind. Reached out to my mother, and she saw that I was maybe overworking because she kept track of the time that I was on the set. Because when you're a kid, you were only supposed to be on the set for 4 or 5 hours the most. And she actually kept track of that. But she was great.
Wow.
And she was, Marilyn Monroe had a real good friendship with Ethel. And I think if you read the book, there's a episode there where it was Ethel's birthday. We were shooting the film, and I was in some scenes with her. And Marilyn had, I guess, secretly arranged to show up on the set unannounced and take Ethel to lunch. And that came off when Marilyn just walked on the set. Usually you have to have a reason to be there. There's a gate there and a guard. But Marilyn Monroe was walking through the gate. There's no questions asked. She just walks in. Wearing some fancy red dress and her hair all up and done. And Ethel was completely surprised, taken aback, and loved every minute of it. And they went to lunch. And they came back about 3 hours later, which the director wasn't too happy about. But hey, again, it was Marilyn Monroe and Ethel Waters, the star of the movie. What are you going to do? But yeah, working with Ethel was I can't think of anybody better that I worked with other than her. I've worked with a lot of good people, and they've all been nice and kind. But she stands out. And some of the pictures I have with me, her reading the Bible to me, and The movie itself is actually quite good. It turned out to be purchased by religious. It became a religious film.
Billy Graham.
Well, Billy Graham he bought the rights to it, and but it started out as a regular feature film. It showed in some theaters, and then he decided to buy the rights to it and include it in his own group of films, because he had his own company too, called Worldwide Pictures, something like that. But his son took over that part of it after Billy passed away. Don't know if it's still around today, but they had a huge library of films that started out as regular films, but they had a religious overtone to it and storyline. So he showed them in his theaters and churches.
Wow, tremendous!
Yeah, I have it on DVD, VHS. You can see it online somewhere. Just go to YouTube. It's there.
Fantastic.
A lot of my old films are there. I have some sci-fi movies like Cosmic Man. That was one of my favorites.
It's a great one.
Yeah. A Western called Toughest Gun and Tombstone with George Montgomery.
Oh, yeah, George Montgomery.
They all reflect back. Yeah, he was a great guy. I really can't think of anybody that I had a problem with. When you're a young kid, I guess it's easier than adults clashing. But like I said, by the time I got home at the age of 22, it just figured I'd go in a different direction.
Yeah.
And I did. Most of the people I'd worked with were already done anyway. So, same with the kids. I worked with John Provost and Lassie and Stanley and my three sons and Don Grady, who passed away too young. And a lot of those guys were in other shows with me too. He did about 7 wagon trains with me. Don Grady did.
Oh, of course, because you did many westerns.
Kid named Tommy Nolan was another kid who I worked a lot with. Don't know if anybody knows him. His real name was Butch Bernard. I guess it didn't make it in Hollywood, so it was changed to Tommy Nolan. So they did that with everybody. Norma Jean, right? Norma Jean.
Yeah.
Right from the beginning, hey? And
a lot of people don't know that Reese Witherspoon's name is really Laura Jean. Laura Jean Reese Witherspoon.
I didn't know that.
They dropped the Laura Jean. I asked her about that. I said, well, I call everybody by those other names. I said, I like Laura Jean. I like Norma Jean. I knew somebody named Betty May. Girlfriend of mine back in high school was, Leslie Marie. I like those kind of names. A name with a dash.
A name with a dash.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you
go. Sure.
Well, then we're just going to call you Billy Joe. Wait a minute, Billy Dash Joe.
There's your boy. Shannon remembers a story about one day I was sitting on the steps with my mother and Marilyn on the 20th Century Fox lot on the steps of her trailer. We were all eating drumstick ice cream cones. Drumsticks. That was one of Marilyn's favorites. Drumsticks and popsicles. How many people know that? Nobody.
Yeah.
But it's in my mother's journal, so it's real. Anyway, one day she looked at my mother. I don't know why she happened to bring that up, but she said, Toby, she said, if you ever get tired of your son Scotty, I'll adopt him.
Oh.
And me, being young and stupid at the time, I just said, gee, Mom, can we? And my mom just gave me kind of a dirty look.
Yeah, no dinner that night.
Smiled at Marilyn, and then I was in the doghouse for about a month.
I do have to ask. You mentioned Lassie. What was Lassie like to work with?
Well, that's another interesting story, because Lassie, they had about 6 of them on the set at all time. They all looked the same, of course, and they were all trained the same. So for different scenes, they were using different Lassies. I don't know how many people know that, but there wasn't one Lassie in all those episodes. But they sure looked the same, didn't they?
They did. You wouldn't have known. Blink.
No, you wouldn't. But the dogs were all very, very well trained, even working with strangers, because, in every episode they had some actors that had never done one before an episode. And the dogs were just really trained well. They never got upset. They never got any anxiety or excited. And extremely well trained.
So was there like a kind of a rule for the studios to have these dogs in case they weren't behaving, or they were hungry or tired, or what, or had whatever.
That's a good question, because I've done other shows where they had other dogs that were part of a scene, and you're right, they weren't as well behaved or as well trained. I guess when you're in a series where they're working with the same dogs all the time, they're probably better suited than just some dog being put into a movie for a few scenes or another TV show. Good example, Cujo. Remember that movie?
Oh no! It brought me for dogs for many years.
That dog. That dog. They used only one or two. They looked alike too, but I think they were trained to be mean. I don't know if I'd want to be in a film like that. I don't know how they got through that, but
I just keep thinking about Toto.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Yeah, that's a good
there
example.
could only be one little Toto. Come on.
There was only one.
Yeah.
Is there anything, Donna, did you ever work, I'm trying to remember, did you ever work with animals? I'm trying to think.
Only two-legged.
Good answer.
That's great. And Shannon, did you, when you do your work, when you speak to people from classic Hollywood and you write your articles, is there anything, I guess, that's really surprised you? I know that's a big question, but whether it's just a common theme or anything in particular that you think just, wow, that was, yeah.
Yeah, Scott and I have talked about this, and that is, I think there is something just really, really special about the actors and actresses and people who were involved in those films. And I think maybe it stems from, for a lot of them, they were doing what they loved. And there's just kind of an inner joy that radiates as a result. And I feel like Scott and Donna are both great examples of this. There is so much youth and wisdom to the two of you. And I think so much of that does come from having just these very special talents and sharing them.
That's really interesting what you say, Shannon, because when you're saying that wisdom, I was thinking when I've seen Scott's films and TV, obviously Donna's I'm very familiar with, is that there does seem to be a poise from that early age. And you wonder where that came from, but a poise and a professionalism.
Right.
Hey, I get very esoteric here. But I mean, come on, guys, essentially, if we all do see that we're, you call them movie stars, film stars, whatever, we all come from the stars, and some of us land, with our light, and that light gets projected, and some light gets projected into a classroom, or some light gets projected into a family, and it radiates out, and sometimes it gets into, a ledger of film or the pages of a book or something that's documented to be captured. But, we all come in. That's the thing. I'm going to have to, just enunciate that we all come in with the capacity for sharing our light and sharing our love. And then, a lot of us come in with, kind of circumstances, that we have to live our lives to overcome. And so then life is more of a struggle and the light is dim, but take the essence of each one of us. And let's face it, if you're looking at it, you're looking at a loved one or anyone who loves you, and it's just so deep, and it penetrates so brightly that we all shine, and we all shine, even brighter and brighter now. I mean, every time I feel a solar flare, I'm like, I'm getting radiated, I mean, it's like, oh my gosh, seriously. And we could connect that way with an animal. We connect that way with a tree, or an insect, for goodness sake, whatever, you can be fascinated and share that light, because we all have it.
Yeah.
Donna, you've put the subject in proper perspective.
We, and I'm not, and I have absolutely no qualms about just saying, that there's kind of a brigade, I believe, on this planet right now of healers that are light workers. And, and that's our mission of connecting with like-minded and having compassion for controversy. And, we're all in this process of finding a way of coming together and sharing our lives. And I really believe that that's the process that we're in. And it's not an easy one, that's for sure. Lots of speed bumps along the way, but I do see that there's an energy coming from the universe that supports that, and I feel like a crusader, and I feel like Dr. Adam and I, love bringing loving beings together so that we can share our love and tell our stories and connect with whomever is listening. And it's just a product of actually being isolated from the pandemic. It's like suddenly we all went to lockdown, and what obstacles were in our way of continuing to connect. And then this industry of podcasts, was born. And I know that there were, some little seedlings that were happening probably 10 years before, but very few. Now there's just, my gosh, there's millions of us.
Right.
It is, and it's just that chance to to communicate. Like you said, it's provided this opportunity for so many people to do so, because Shannon, of course, your podcast is very popular, and as is your website. Now tell us about, because I alluded to it at the beginning, tell us about where the recipes and where the cooking aspect of your website came from. So you've got, of course, the classic Hollywood, but tell us about that.
Yeah. So the two different but great interests of my life, the classic Hollywood and plant-based eating. So I became a vegetarian over a decade ago now. And just kind of woke up one day and realized I didn't like meat, and was kind of afraid of taking on the label, if you will, but got more comfortable with it, and officially just said, all right, I'm vegetarian. I can go back if I ever decide to, but I've stuck with it. And in 2019, I think it was, my husband encouraged me to start the website. And on that website, I do a new plant-based recipe just about every week. And I've been doing that since 2019. So the official count, it's around 150 original plant-based recipes at this point. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun. I just, everyone has to eat. And I think life is a lot easier if you enjoy being in the kitchen and creating. I know Donna does as well.
I adore it.
Yeah. So that's kind of the
Can I tell you what I
recipe
made
side of
yesterday?
things. Yes, please do.
So do you incorporate cheese?
I do. Yes. I was vegan for about 2 years. And then when I was pregnant with my daughter, I had to start eating cheese again because it was a craving, and then never went back to vegan. So yes, cheese definitely.
Okay. So listen, guys, I was kind of enchanted by a recipe that I saw that originated in Venice at Harry's Bar.
Oh.
Yeah. And later on, a Harry's Bar version became a private club in London. And I just stumbled onto a recipe called, and I hope I'm saying it correctly, but I think it's cow con pepe. And and what that is it's pecorino, which is sheep cheese, pepper, and pasta.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know it? Yeah, I always say Casio de Pepe, but I don't know what I'm saying.
Casio,
Adam
thank you.
probably knows better than me.
No, you
I'm
do. No. Oh, do you?
let's see. I'm trying to say it in my head. Calce e pepe. Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
I had lots of that in Calabria when I was in Italy recently, down south.
Wow.
Absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's
last
wonderful.
night I tried it out, and it's so simple.
Yes.
I happen to go to this very kind of remote area where I live, about an hour and 15 minutes away, called Patagonia, not the one near Chile. This is the Patagonia in the mountains of Arizona.
Mhm.
And there is a lake there, but anyway, it's a kind of an artist village. And there's one market that caters to the local farmers, and there was fresh sheep cheese that was already grated in their refrigerator. So I boogied home, and yesterday I made the sheep cheese. So the pecorino, which is sheep cheese, and what you use is the pasta water,
Yes.
Mm,
the
It's the
hot pasta
secret.
water.
Yeah.
Yes, there's no butter, there's no oil, it's so simple.
Yeah.
I was just like, it's on the tip of my tongue, wanting to share that with you. And oh gosh, what's the name of rigatoni? You use rigatoni because
Yeah.
it has the ridges and it has the channel in the middle, and it captures the
Right.
sauce.
Perfect. Mm.
and
It's-
and couple it with, now I don't drink, but I
I
had
don't
fresh
either.
okay, I had fresh peaches, and
Ugh.
I pureed them, and I made a mock Bellini. So
Mm.
the fresh peaches with Pellegrino, and
Mhm.
and then I had guests over, and they wanted to put in some sparkling wine or some prosecco. So that's
Oh,
fine. They can do that, and I can do my thing.
right, right. Well, Donna, I think we all wish we were at your house for dinner last night.
Oh, come
Absolutely.
on down. Come on down. You are
Just
so
going to say,
welcome.
when do we eat? When do we eat?
Right.
You have an
Yeah,
open invitation.
yeah. Well, it's no secret that I love Italian food.
Ah,
Oh,
Mm.
the best.
well, there's a little Italian restaurant right in Bisbee, Arizona, where I live, in my own living room, and I'm happy. This is an open invitation for all of you.
Nice.
Sounds perfect. And I think that's the Shannon, I was just going to say, that's the thing I think with your recipes is that I think a challenge for people is often this idea they want to go vegetarian or they think they want to get rid of meat, but they go, what would I cook? What do I do? And to see
Yeah.
the diversity of what can be done, and it's not
Yeah.
leaving meat out. It's a whole, cuisine
Right.
in its own right without it.
Right. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, that's completely right. I think a lot of people get caught up on, oh, well, I need a meat substitute. This recipe, this is a recipe that I would serve with chicken, and I need chicken. And
Mm.
it's just not true. There are so many great protein options that you don't need fake meat for. Beans, people forget about beans. They're just wonderful, wonderful. It can make anything a meal. Garbanzo beans, I just love, use them all the time. And yes, yeah, I think something else a lot of people don't realize is just how much flavor you can get from herbs and spices, and
Yes.
Honey, do you grow them?
Oh, I wish I had the time. Luckily, we have a really nice grocery store very close by, and they've always got a great fresh herb selection. But that
wonderful.
is a goal of mine at some point in the future.
And one question: have you incorporated chia seed?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's actually, I like to use it as an egg replacer in baking.
Because I've discovered chia seed is it's so high in protein, and it's so simple. May I share my new little recipe for breakfast?
Yes, yes.
So, hey guys, it's so simple. First of all, you have black chia seed or white chia seed. I prefer the pale one, but anyway, you use 3 tablespoons, and it's very economical. You use 3 tablespoons of chia seed to 1 cup of any form of milk, so plant-based milk or whatever. And then you let it bloom and it becomes a pudding in the refrigerator after several hours. And I tell you, if you use, a half a cup of chia pudding in the morning for breakfast, it's equivalent to an egg or 2 maybe. And it's very high in fiber, and add some fruit and some granola, and oh, yum.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Can you come over now and do that? It's only 8 o'clock
Right.
here in the morning.
Can I hear a yum? Can I hear a yum from the peanut gallery?
Yum.
Scott,
Yeah.
are you a cook?
I'll try it. Pardon me?
Are you a cook, Scott, or
Well,
do you enjoy cooking?
I like to cook pasta dishes, and I do cook at home 2 or 3 days a week when I'm not going out. And I might add that I'm not a vegan or vegetarian, but I stopped eating red meat when I was about 40.
Okay.
However, though, if somebody, if I'm invited to somebody's home and their pot roast is what they have, I'm not going to embarrass them. And I say, well, I can't eat this.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it means anything now or then, but when you're a product of the 50s like I am, and Donna, you know this too, you're raised on meat and potatoes. Everything was meat and potatoes all your life.
Yeah.
And that's all we knew,
Well, a good little trick that I learned is that hydrochloric acid comes from raw radish. And, when your body isn't used to, digesting beef, and you do break down and introduce it into your diet, to assist your body in digesting it, if you accompany it with radish, it's very, because it's it's like what people use as Tums or something, that's the synthesized version. But just some raw radish with some meat, and it's very helpful.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I have to carry a few of those in my pocket next time I go to somebody's house.
What are those bulges in your pocket? I want to know, Scott.
Just my radish. Fun.
Put in the back. How about the back pocket? No wallet, just some radishes in there.
Don't sit down too quickly. I'm picturing, Scott. Was it Peyton Place where you've got the food scene, or am I thinking of a different film?
No, you're thinking of the right film, and there's a whole story behind that. I don't want to go into detail now, but I actually got sick, and they gave me the next day off.
Right. We'll have to put it in the. Obviously, it's in your book.
I have that scene too. I mean, Donna, you did the Stew Show Stack back in probably 2018 or 2017. Did you not?
Oh yes.
Okay. Well, he goes one step beyond. When you do an interview with him, it's usually a 3 or 4 hour marathon, and he finds clips of you that you never even knew existed, because he's got a research team that does it. Including himself. Yeah. And he's just really good at that. I got one coming up, not me. I did one a couple of years ago with him. And he found things that I didn't know existed. And then he sent me the clips. Bachelor Father, I did a few of those. I said, I didn't know that those were out there.
Oh, fantastic.
And because I have played a lot of character roles. I was like the wise kid next door, that kind of thing. And he found them all, And in Lassie, I was always a kind of a bully kid. I was always beating up John Provost.
Right.
And so I developed a reputation for those episodes.
That was the role.
And then we did other episodes where we're all together. We're Cub Scouts. We're going on journeys together and trip. So each episode was different, but mainly I was there to make him look bad. That wasn't too hard. He was a little tiny kid, at the time, and he was 6 years younger than I was. So just played the part, whatever they called for.
Did you know Kevin Coughlin, Scott?
Yes. I did.
We're going to have to. We probably don't have time today, but I definitely want to speak about Kevin, because he's one of my favorites, and I've been working a bit of a project on him. He was good.
Yeah, he was good. Yeah. But in Peyton Place, they had the picnic scene where no dialogue involved for me in that, but I'm seeing running down a row of cakes, taking all the frosting off of them and licking it.
Oh.
And I have to say, they did that about 12 to 13 times, and the guy was spraying more of that frosting on there, probably made out of pure lard back then.
Oh,
Yeah.
no wonder.
Yeah, so I'm eating that. I kept going through that. Then they show the hot dog scene where I got a hot dog in one hand, a Coke in the other. I didn't use Dr. Pepper, Donna.
Yeah,
Regular Coke.
it might not have been worse. I don't know.
No, and they showed them taking, and they weren't really hot dog. They were big sausage dogs sticking 3 inches out of the bun. And they did that about 10 times. They wanted to get that right. It's very maybe because of the background people. They didn't care. I was doing my part right, eating the food. But it was the background people that bothered the cameraman. So, and then I'm sitting there eating, drinking more soda, and I got a big watermelon in front of me with the red seeds all over my face, sleeping with the watermelon in my hands. And yeah, my mother was concerned, and even Lana Turner. You can't feed a kid that stuff 40 times a day, you know. So that night I didn't feel too good, and we were in Maine, part of Maine, doing that scene. Camden, Maine, and so they gave me the next day off. I didn't have any scenes anyway for a couple of days. So they said, take a couple of days off. And my mother's journals were quoted by saying that, well, you can't beat that. You got a couple of days off with pay.
How much?
Another interesting thing, Donna and Shannon, you could talk about this. During the time I was doing Peyton Place, it wouldn't be a lot of money today, but because of the contract, I was getting $2,500 a week. And it was right about that time that they were punishing Marilyn. 20th Century Fox decided to reduce her salaries from $6,000 a week down to $1,500. So my mother made a point of saying, hey, for about nine weeks there, Scotty was making more money than Marilyn Monroe. I told her not to put that. I don't put that in the book. I don't want to defame Marilyn in any way. But yeah, it's true. I did make a little more than she did.
So between between you having to eat all that food and Donna having to drink gallons and gallons of Dr. Pepper,
right?
Yeah, lovely.
Well, thanks for the radish trick, Donna. I'm going to try that if I ever have to eat meat again.
Okay.
The radish trick. Okay. Yeah, when I go to a fast food place now, I say, have any veggie burgers? And they say, yeah, but they're made on the same grill with the meat.
That's true. That is so true. Actually, Jared is he's been a very hygiene, efficient, very strong-willed person for over 40 years, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
close to 50 years now.
Wow.
And it's just amazing. He goes out and walks like 4.5 miles along the river. That's not too far from a river in Arizona. Can you believe it?
Yeah. Wow.
A river went through
water in the desert.
Tell me, Donna, how far is Bisbee from Yuma?
Oh, quite a distance, sweetheart. Several.
So. The reason I say is because about 4 months ago I had to go to Yuma for a memorial tribute. And we were driving there, me and another guy were driving there. And I saw signs, I think it said like 300 miles. It said Bisbee. And I said, I never heard of Bisbee, Arizona. I've been in Phoenix, I've been in Scottsdale, I've been in Tombstone, of all places, Tucson, but I've never been in Bisbee. Where's Bisbee?
I would say Tombstone, that kind of old cowboy town, is, I don't know, 50 miles away from here.
That's right. That's probably where I saw the sign. Okay. Yeah, every other year I do a Western show. They still have a Western show where they get all the Western guys together and put on a show for the tourists. And I'm the resident photographer for that show.
Oh, my goodness.
Fantastic.
In Tombstone.
Well,
Next
there
time
you
in Tombstone, I got to look you up.
Well, yeah. What time of year is that?
It's usually it's in September. I'm not doing it this year, but it's every other year. And I will do it. I'll probably do it in 2026. Yeah.
Okay, so listen,
Actually,
guys.
2025.
You've mentioned Marilyn's memorial on August the 5th. Now you're saying you do photography for the cowboy event in September next year. I mean, somehow the four of us need to figure out a way of coming together at those times and be in those places.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, we are in the thick of monsoon season, which is really exciting. And most people don't really know the experience of that. Do anyone
No.
No,
Well, I'm
not
a
at all.
little familiar with it because out here and all across the country, you've heard of El Nino and La Nina.
Mm,
The El Nino season, you usually get a lot of rain in areas where you don't get it as much.
mm,
And the
mm,
opposite occurs based on the currents of the ocean in the Pacific Ocean, called a
Yeah.
La Nina. Just the opposite.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a dry, arid conditions. And this year, they're not expecting much, or I should say next year, very much rain in the wintertime and kind of like drought conditions. And I would
Well,
think that would carry over into Arizona too, and Nevada.
well, we have been living strictly on rainwater
Yeah,
on the property that we live, and we
yeah,
have that hold the rainwater. So trust me, I pray for rain, in
Yeah.
the desert. But this year, literally, we had a waterfall on the property.
oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah. So there's been a very unexpected kind of generosity from the heavens. I feel like God's tears are flowing. It's like from everything that's going
Mm.
on, but bringing us, good fortune. But yeah. Don't know what the magic is, but who knows? I'm just bringing up those dates because they seem to be very close to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are. We need to figure something out there.
I'll get on the plane now because it'll take me that long to get there.
Yeah.
Adam,
Probably would, yeah.
you're gonna have to time travel, honey.
Yes. Well, I'm already a day ahead. 2 beats behind, but a day ahead.
I know. Well, but let me just describe. I mean, when the heat builds up in the afternoon, generally, it calls on the thunder, and the thunder starts clapping, and then the lightning follows, and then the rain starts
Yeah.
pouring, and it's very, very dramatic, and it's kind of
Yeah.
nature's way of cooling the desert down.
Wow.
Sure.
And
then
the
you
and
get
then the
some,
other side effect is that you think of the desert, you look out and you see sand or dirt, and you have no idea in that dormancy what life is just waiting to explode. And whereas we live on a mountain, and this mountain is so green, I feel like I'm in Ireland.
Wow.
But
Oh, wow.
only a month ago, it was desert.
Because
That's what
where are you both located, Shannon and Scott?
I'm in Ventura, California.
Mm-hmm.
So,
he's in
yeah.
Ventura County, and I'm actually part of Los Angeles County.
Yeah,
Right.
not too far.
Yeah, I'm in what they call the San Fernando Valley. The Hollywood sign is about 6 miles from me, and I do an awful lot of assignments there. I'm like the Hollywood sign guy. I have a reputation of doing a lot of work there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
used to,
quite a.
back in the 70s and 80s when I was coming up the ranks, I used to have some advertising. Show up at the Hollywood sign at 11 a.m. and you'll find me there. I'll take your picture and da-da-da. And $15. I got the monkey on my shoulder and playing the organ grinder. And
Oh.
I don't admit to that, but I actually did stuff like that then.
Ah, it's clever.
And, it worked out pretty good, and met a lot of interesting people there.
Yeah.
I'm
Then
sure.
they had look-alike contests out there, and I was always the resident photographer for that. And the people trying to look like Marilyn Monroe, it didn't work too well. None of them did.
No.
I do know some Marilyn impersonators. A couple of them actually can sing and parade around kind of like she did.
Yeah.
There's just something special about Marilyn that nobody can ever duplicate.
No way. No way. My favorite movie is The River of No Return.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Mine
Good
too.
film. Good film.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that song she sings on the raft. No one
Right.
can wear jeans like Norma Jean in her jeans, right?
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And
The River of No Return.
every part she played, beginning with I thought that she did a great job in Niagara, which was earlier
Yes.
in her career.
Very
That was
much.
dramatic. She could play a comedy. She could play dramatic. Once she got to Some Like It Hot in 1959, Billy Wilder admitted that she started to fumble her lines a little bit then. That's when she was starting to go through some problems. He used to put her lines on some of the exterior and interior shots, like on the walls and on the mirrors, so she could remember her lines. And then, of course, when she finally got to the end there, something's got to give. It just all unraveled.
Yeah.
There's another movie that she starred in with Laurence Olivier, and what's the name of
the
it? I
Prince
don't.
and the Showgirl.
Prince and the
Oh
Prince and the
my
Showgirl.
God.
Yeah.
That
Great.
scene that pans down into the ballroom and there's so many people on the floor, but you can point her out and because like I say, no matter what abuse she had to endure or karmically, had to experience in her life, she still shined in that big crowd. You could always find her.
Yeah. Well, and something really interesting about that film, Laurence Olivier is arguably the best stage actor that's ever been. And he himself admitted that on film, Marilyn had him beat.
I love him.
Yeah.
Now that's the kind of man I love. A man with dignity and humility.
Yeah, he had that. And let's not forget the Misfits. She was really good in that too.
With Montgomery Clark Gable.
Clark Gable. And when Clark Gable died like a week after production finished, she took that personally. She thought she had something to do with it. And that didn't help her either. That was 1960, 61.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting, isn't it, when you think of, I was just going to say that her career, like, she packed in so much, but what was it, 10-ish years? Yeah. Same with Elvis, more, but yeah.
Well, I have to lighten the mood, my darling Adam. When you say tennis, I have to say tennis, everyone.
Tennis?
Sorry. No, I know Marilyn she had to endure, and so did Elvis. These iconic people, James Dean, they were all tortured souls, but somehow their goodness is still with us.
Yeah. So it sounds like, Scott, Marilyn for you was sort of that big one that you met and just were sort of really, I guess, taken with. And Donna, was there someone in your career like that? Just that's a big question.
Yeah, I know, because I would say that the people from the British invasion, anyone that I ever, became not in relationship with, but just got to, be physically close and feel their energy. Mick Jagger, I was close enough to Ringo Starr and George Harrison to feel their energy, and I had some encounters, and oh gosh, I know that there's probably the one person that always stands out to me is not the actor, is not the performer, but the producer, Jack Good. I think he was kind of like a Benny Hill in England. He did have that kind of personality, but his love for music and pop culture was so intense, and his spirituality, just brought us together, and his open-heartedness of knowing who belonged together, to come together to give so much, and he had to put up with bureaucratic red tape, and he defied it for as long as he could in the 60s. He was one of the heroes for me.
And just to give some context, with that, when you're talking about the bureaucratic of the network in particular, and the idea of he not willing to sort of toe the line in terms of segregation of artists, based on being black, and how he really fought, all of that, and paid a price. But he so believed in having to do that there wasn't any other option for him. Yeah, and I love the tie-in that he had with RFK. When RFK was the Attorney General, and he was in a friendship with him, and when the studios said that they didn't like the mixed races as close as they were together on the stage,
And they didn't even want, that to happen at all. And he said, well, then put it in writing and I'll send it to my friend Robert Kennedy. And they never did. They never did. And the show went on and became #1 immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what
Tremendous.
our country was so hungry for, in the early 60s. And but we've come up against a lot of brick walls, and yet it's like what we're talking about is how the longevity and the ability that what started in the 30s, what started in, like these time periods of innovation and heroism, for people to just break out and become so vocal with their expression at whatever cost. And it's happening again, because we're also hungry for freedom, I think. We're also hungry to just, be as who we are and live up to our potential. And actually, potential is the key energy of what this full moon is bringing in. This Leo full moon is supporting, our full potential of not just what we do, but who we are, without effort, just what comes from us naturally and never makes us tired and always keeps us coming back for more.
And always keep a radish in your pocket. That's the most important thing.
It's the moral of the story.
It's the moral of the story.
Well, this has just been heavenly. We could go on for hours and hours, and I do hope that we reconvene at a very divine time. And oh gosh, Shannon, I have to send my love to you. Dr. Adam, thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for coming back to Australia and landing. and thank you, Scott, for making time for us and sharing your life. This has just been so special.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having us.
No, an absolute pleasure.
Listening to you, Donna, was really something. I've learned a few things about you too.
No, many
I'm
blessings.
never going to forget the radish trick either. No, sir. Next time I decide to get a good burger, that's coming with me. Good for you. Yeah. Well, I've been following you a long time on Facebook. We're on there too. I'm on there. Shannon's on there. I don't know if you are, Adam. Are you on any social media?
I am. I will be friending you all after this. And
good. I got some good stuff on there, and I know you guys do. So
fantastic.
And again, your book is still available, Made in Hollywood.
Yeah, it is. And it turned out to be a bestseller too. Yeah, I was remarkably, impressed and unexpectedly became a bestseller at Amazon.
That's fantastic.
It sold in a few bookstores, and they sold out. They're thinking of doing a reprinting and changing the cover, because I never did like the cover.
Okay.
The cover they used was my Peyton Place headshot, at age of 9. And I always wanted them to use a scene from Peyton Place where I'm standing there with Diane Varsi in a more dramatic scene, because, it's a book about the old Hollywood, and why not show an actual scene from the movie?
Absolutely.
That's a great idea.
But the publisher was a little afraid that 20th Century Fox might have to pull a copyright thing on them.
Of course.
And I said, no. I said, I own the photograph. But the photograph was actually taken by, one of the publicity photographers who gave it to my mother, and he gave her the rights to it also.
Oh, fantastic.
They made me sign something, too, which I did, and they still didn't go along with it.
Well,
So.
Scott, I had, in 2016, I published a book, and or I had a book published, and when they sold out and did the reprint, they revised a new cover, so it is very doable.
Okay. In fact,
fantastic.
I think I have that book, Donna.
Uh-oh.
I think I do. You're in trouble now. I got to reread it now to remember what I read.
Okay.
Well, you can swap books.
Okay.
I think that sounds great. And Shannon, your website is?
My website is vanguardofhollywood.com. And yes, everything is there, to recipes, everything I've written on classic Hollywood, and link to the podcast as well.
Beautiful, sweetheart. And I look forward to sharing more recipes with you.
Yes, same.
Well, thanks so
Well,
much,
guys,
everyone.
yes, and I thank you, and Dr. Adam, and I thank you for being on Love's a Secret Weapon podcast.
You're in love, and love is here to stay.
Hey, welcome, Shannon, back to Love's a Secret Weapon. You are the dessert of our episode today that we've already shared with you and Scott Morrow, and it was just delightful. So I have a new interest that we have in common, and that is cuisine. What in the world brought you to this blog of yours that is so adorable, and it is so filled with information and your personal touch on celebrities' recipes, especially the one that I kind of courted you on, which was an Audrey Hepburn chocolate cake.
Well, Donna, first of all, thank you so much for having me to talk about this recipe and for making it. And yeah, to answer your question, I kind of just knew at some point my love of creating recipes in the kitchen and my love of classic Hollywood, at some point they would converge.
Mm-hmm.
And the way that came about was just realizing in my research of these movie stars that I've written about that they all did have a recipe that was special to them.
Mm-hmm.
And in this case, Audrey Hepburn, she had a chocolate cake recipe that was her personal favorite. She made it whenever friends were over. She made it for her sons. And luckily, in 2015, Audrey's younger son, Luca, wrote a book called Audrey at Home. And in this book, he shares his memories of his mom growing up, photos from her life in Switzerland, where her home base was, and recipes. And this chocolate cake recipe is one of them. And I've made it many times over the years, but it was always a little difficult to get just right. I never knew if it was going to work or if it was going to kind of flatten on me in the oven. It was just a little unpredictable. And so my inspiration from this cake was to take this recipe that was so Audrey, but create my own spin on it that would make it user friendly to anyone. Any home cook could make it and know that it was going to turn out right every time. And so that was the inspiration. My recipe stays true to the flavor of Audrey's. But again, it's something that you can depend on and any home chef can make.
And so, okay, when I went on your blog and I saw this absolutely tantalizing recipe, and I might say that she is a petite woman who was very conscious of her weight, and that she decided to make her chocolate cakes in a ramekin, which would be individual servings for and that that to me is intriguing. Rather than making a large cake and having the temptation of eating a little bit.
Right. And that was one of my spins on the recipe. Her original recipe is for a standard 8x8. And I just thought, Audrey always said she had a fantastic appetite, but she had what she called this little leveler that just kind of went down when she was full, and she just automatically knew when to stop eating. And I just thought, well, that's wonderful. I wish all of us had that. And so my way to kind of emulate that leveler was to create this recipe to work in ramekins. So as you mentioned, my recipe goes in 6 8-ounce ramekins. And so you end up with these 6 cute little chocolate cakes. And perhaps it will help all of us emulate Audrey's famous portion control.
I love that. And so what did you do to modify the recipe so that it's kind of foolproof?
Yeah, so the major change was adding the flour. And I don't add a whole lot. It doesn't take much flour to take a recipe and make it easier to depend on the results. So that was a huge difference. I also added brown sugar because when you don't have flour in a cake, it has this wonderful denseness to it. And adding the brown sugar is another way to kind of get that wonderful, just chocolatey denseness of a flourless cake, but again, without having to deal with kind of the finickiness that comes with not having flour in the cake recipe. So I would say the brown sugar and the flour were the biggest changes. I did more vanilla. I did a little bit more salt. And I just am so happy. The resulting cake tastes like Audrey's. But again, anyone can do it, and you know how it's going to turn out.
Wow. Well, I think you're, giving that confidence to any of our listeners, whether you are a lover of baking or like me, I'm a very part-time baker. I don't consider myself a baker. But I do love being in the kitchen. And for this special occasion, I followed your recipe, and I actually only had one ramekin in my possession. So I had to go, kind of hunting for 3 more, serving 4. And, and so, actually, you know what? I had a little left over because maybe I filled my ramekins more than I should have. But
oh no, and that's another thing. This recipe, there is room for interpretation there. So yeah, you do what you can with the ramekins, and if it's a little bit fuller, a little bit less, you'll still be okay.
So for our Love's a Secret Weapon audience, I'll just tell you, because I'm going to include a photo of the birthday party so that you can actually see how it turned out. But what I did, started with your recipe, and I made the chocolate cake. But then I just know that, again, like my girlfriend is a petite woman, very much like Audrey, but with a gigantic appetite. It's just this, whatever you call that, the metabolism just burns it up. So, they're kind of lucky way, but so I decided, because my husband is more of a gluten-free person, so I made a vanilla gluten-free cake, but I did it in a sheet. And then I used, once I emptied the chocolate cake and I had them on their individual plates, I used the ramekin to make the same size, the little circles of vanilla cake. And in between that, I just whipped up some whipping cream, and with no sugar, no nothing, just the whipping cream, and I added some raspberries, and then topped that with the vanilla and more whipped cream and more raspberries.
That sounds heavenly.
It took us about 2 hours to get through all that.
Oh, I bet. Yeah, compiling a cake and putting it together, it's a lot of work, and you're trying to make it look pretty at the same time. It's a lot. It's a lot of work. I believe it. 2 hours sounds about right, but what a delicious result. I love your combination of flavors.
Well, it took us 2 hours to eat it.
Oh, to eat it.
Yeah. Because conversation.
So just decadent.
Yeah, conversation, and it's rich, and the joy of just celebrating, because she turned 80. And that was a
Wow.
milestone for her. She's a very active woman and very youthful for her age. And so, it was just a wonderful, kind of lengthy birthday celebration
Yeah.
with your,
Oh, that's wonderful.
yeah, with your recipe. It didn't really take me that long to assemble everything. But it
Oh,
was a labor of love. It really, it just,
yeah.
when you put your mind to it and you relax into it, and you're just, it's all a meditation for me. And of course, you don't want to waste anything, and you're using some equipment, and you're using an oven, and all of those things you could trip yourself up on. But just stay focused, and then be so delighted to share the experience. And I'm able to share it with you and everyone, and
Yeah.
and my friends, and personally. and
Yeah.
and then the bonus was that I think I mentioned that when I did find the extra ramekins, they were actually French cordon bleu in a secondhand
Oh,
store, which I
oh,
think I only had to pay $7 each for.
oh my gosh.
And when I went to the cash register, sometimes you get lucky. The lady I asked the lady at the cash register to double check and make sure I could use these ramekins in an oven.
Okay. Yeah.
And so she went online, and I think she went on to either eBay or one of those, and she found something from that company that was similar. And she said, "Oh my goodness, we should charge more for this," because they were charging $80 per ramekin.
Oh my gosh. And
So,
you got it for 7. Oh my gosh. What a find.
so it was a big bonus. And thanks to you for, deciding to portion them out like that. It
Oh,
really was wonderful.
yeah, it's just another way to get the Audrey Hepburn aura in the dish.
Oh, I love that. Well, you are a doll, and I can't wait to explore more recipes with you, and virtually be together in the kitchen.
Oh, well, thank you, Donna. I'm so flattered and honored that you made my recipe, especially for such a special occasion.
Oh, honey, you're not only great at making sweet things, but it comes from within, because you are sweet through and through, and no calories included.
If only.
Um, well, bless your heart. Thank you so much, Shannon, and
Oh,
looking forward to our meeting again.
thank you, Donna. So am I. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
Bon appetit.
Bon appetit.
Yes, love.